You can hover just in case as we get to, we've got 1 more minute. Hi, I'm excited to be part of this podcast series. My name is Dr. Habib. I'm the owner and founder of Next Health. And although my background is as an internal medicine physician, I now specialize in functional medicine as well as longevity medicine. To you, Sean.
Hi, I'm Sean David Cohen. I'm a published author and ingredients expert, and I'm so happy to be here, part of this. I appreciate it. We are delighted to be featured on Islam on Demand, and this is just a great opportunity. And with us also is Dr. Brody Miller, a brain health specialist. Brody?
Yeah, fantastic to be here. Excited to talk to you all about addiction. I'm Dr. Brody Miller, and I'm a brain rehabilitation specialist, and I believe in the power of the healing in the brain. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, this is just going to be a great conversation. We're going to dig deep, and we're going to keep it super interesting for anybody that is either battling addiction now, or if you've had addictions in the past and maybe you have triggers, or you're just worried about, relapsing back. There are a lot of addictions. Most people think when they hear the word addiction, they think of hard drugs, but there's so many other addictions we're going to cover. And our main focus is spirituality, because what happens when we engage addictions, we dampen our spirituality, our connection with God. And so we want to delve into that. And this is just a holistic, organic way, a conversation that fuels everybody's health, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, everything across the board. And I have been working with Dr. Habib for about 2 years now. We have been collaborating on books on health, like online, kind of the DIY type of health courses. And we've got an invention, the dopamine gum that we've been pushing out that's doing fantastic. And I love working with you. And I've known Dr. Miller for almost a year now. We've been collaborating on a health course, Addiction Rescue. And this is just a great opportunity to talk about it. Thank you, Islam on Demand. Dr. Habib, we talk about addiction, but we're so fortunate to have your insight. You got 30 years, not only as a medical doctor, but you you practice what we all love so much is the holistic, the integrative side. How did you really like, and you didn't cross over where you know, there's a lot of doctors that kind of try and choose either side, but you know, you practice everything. You get handed people that have been through the ringer, and then you have people like me who are already healthy, but probably want a bunch more insight and testing and stuff. So how do you approach people right away when they come to you, and they're asking questions and probably want to pick your brain, right?
Yeah, well, thanks for the introduction. I think you said it very eloquently. The main thing to say is that, you know, once you've been through medical school and the medical training, there is a certain standard that is good, that is the standard. In other words, you can reproduce that whether you're in Africa, Asia, Europe, North Africa, America, or South America. That's the beauty of it. And it at least is good for critical thinking. It is really based on diagnosing disease when it's there. And by virtue of it not being there, the absence of disease, the failing is that it's perceived to be normal. And that's where functional medicine fits in the gap. Because if the function's going down, it may still be classified as normal, but maybe you don't feel so good. Or certainly complex medical conditions where people have everything from blood pressures too high, too low, like POTS. Their hormones are all over the place. The temperatures are all over the place. The gut's all over the place. The skin is showing stuff. It's too complicated. And if it doesn't fit a diagnostic code, then you're left in the lurch. And so that's where functional medicine fits into it. And then you mentioned the so-called normal people. Let's assume that people in their 20s are normal, which I don't agree with. So it's all dependent on your biological age. So if you have a healthy lifestyle, you're likely to have a good level of function. That's your functional age. And we can match that and reproduce that very, very well with DNA testing. And so you can't do DNA testing on every single organ system, but you do have numerous metrics of your overall biological age, through what we call methylation patterns, the rate of aging, the pace of aging, which is also very, very important. And then there's also enough epigenetic ways of measuring what we call the symphony age, the symphony of multiple organ systems. So there is already a lot out there, but it's not enough because we still need to look at the gut function with the bowels, whether stool testing or blood testing, food allergies. We still need to test the liver function. That's an oxymoron in the conventional medical world. You have to have a liver disease, a liver damage to talk about function. That's an oxymoron because it's not true. Then you have to talk about vitamin levels. Well, they don't believe in that. It's like, why do you need it? Well, my answer is you got to measure it. So I'll come to an end in a second, which means that if you are a normal person, you can figure out how normal you are. This is particularly important for athletes because that's not normal, because they're pushing themselves to extreme levels. That's not normal. And let's say it's not average. And that applies to executives. They're not normal. They're pushing themselves to extreme levels. In fact, if you're normal, you've probably got an average life. And they actually are in a good place. But so I would just say that and finally, why did I find this kind of medicine? Because I wasn't able to cure my patients. That's a problem. If I'm trained as a medical doctor, I know how to diagnose, I know how to treat. Why am I not curing these people? And that's what today's conversation will be. Everything from, you know, addiction to brain health. And Dr. Miller's going to talk about how he helped. And we're going to definitely talk about dopamine because it's a very interesting, exciting topic. And so, Dr. Brody, you can take it from here. I mean, tell me about your journey.
Yeah, I would love to. And so the reason I'm personally so passionate about brain health and passionate about addiction recovery is because 12 years ago, I actually was assaulted outside of a nightclub. And what that led to was a brain bleed. Dr. Habib would know what a cavernous malformation is. And it was leaking blood into the rest of my brain, causing me to have grand mal seizures. And so I was put on all kinds of medications, seizure medications, antipsychotics, antidepressants, and none of it was making me feel any better. And I ended up having surgery. They removed that. My memory was poor. I had awful speech patterns. My impulsiveness was skyrocketing off of the roof. And ultimately, what I discovered is the natural healing ability of the brain, which is called neuroplasticity. And what that means is how the brain reorganizes itself through time and function. And this was a miracle for me at the time. That the way that I think, my actions, my behaviors, and my emotions changed the structure of my brain. And so I didn't have any more excuse, because I was addicted to painkillers. I was addicted to drugs and alcohol and impulsive behavior. But when I learned that our frontal lobe was so powerful and that you can strengthen your frontal lobe, then that was the gift that I want to give back to others, to let them know that they can do the same. And then I met Sean, who is a dopamine expert, and really we dove deep into why addiction is so rampant in 2025 and practical things we can do to change that.
Yeah, Dr. Habib, you touched on something I want to expand on with you guys. You were talking about kind of feeling normal, and then you were talking about the youth, like young adults. And, I remember back when you kind of feel invincible from like, your teens through your young adult years, you kind of feel invincible. Like you can do anything. You can eat fast food all the time if you want to. You can drink as much beer and liquor or whatever, smoke weed, whatever you're going to do. And you have a hangover or whatever, and you seem fine. And you're not really worried about having a stroke or, developing a cancer tumor or becoming diabetic overnight. You're just not really, it's not a concern. And you don't recognize what's happening to you if it becomes regular, it becomes the norm for you. And I think that's where a lot of people get dragged in. It's like the undertow in the ocean. You're swimming, you see the current, you feel the current, and then all of a sudden you get swallowed up by a wave and you almost drown, and you realize, hey, I'm vulnerable. I'm human. I could do damage to myself. I can be hurt pretty easily, especially if I let my guard down. So that's kind of how I've been looking at health. I'm 56, 57. Dr. Habib, you're my age. Dr. Brody's still got the youth thing going on. What are you, in your mid to upper 30s or something, right?
37. It's about to be 37. Yep.
So he's still kind of a youngster. But we are all in the same boat, because we got one body, and one brain, and one soul. And we got to take care of this temple that we've got. And, I consider myself one of the world's leading experts when it comes to helping people quit nicotine. So whether it's cigarettes or it's, vaping, which became super popular, over the past 10, 12 years, or, if you're smoking out of a hookah or whatever, what blew my mind is when I realized all the chemicals that were in cigarettes that cause that chemical hangover and cause all of the issues and the addiction. I started to recognize all of the same chemicals in food and some in medications like ammonia and bleach and formaldehyde and all these things. And that's when I started really digging into the dopamine realm. And I recognized that dopamine means more than that feel-good chemical. Because when people hear the word dopamine, they've heard something about it at some point, a little bit or a lot. But usually people are just talking about the feel-good chemical. But it means so much more. And Dr. Habib, you study that. You know how it's produced. You know how it's depleted. You've seen people with deficiencies. What isn't that the catapult of most of these diseases and disorders? Isn't it like, could you equate it with chronic inflammation, say?
Yeah, look, the way I would say it is that it's like Goldilocks, not too little, not too much, just right. And it's one of the most important, not only neurotransmitter, but a almost hormonal chemical in the brain. For people who may think of dopamine as just the happy chemical, what I would say is that that's true, and lack of it, we're going to talk into more detail. But did you know it is the number one antioxidant for the brain? So if you have toxic exposure, which causes oxidation, that's why your dopamine is on full operation. And sometimes if that toxic burden and oxidation doesn't go away, You may go down in dopamine, then you get a disease. That's the beauty of being a doctor. You get to see the extreme and you can work backwards. Because when you have an extreme, there's a lot of dollars spent on research with no cure. That's a joke. They
Right.
haven't cured the Alzheimer's yet or the Parkinson's yet. But people like myself, we're not looking for answers. We're looking for information. You do the study, give us the process, and we'll figure it out. Because right now, when people are close to disease, they're not given any diagnosis. When they get the disease of, say, Alzheimer's, and we're not here to talk about Alzheimer's, but it's important to understand the correlation. They describe it as mild cognitive impairment. That's an oxymoron. By the time it's mild, if you look inside the brain, it looks like garbage. Because years of inflammation has gone in there, years of damage. That's inflammation. With Parkinson's, they see oxidation. In fact, every neurodegenerative, that's just a big word to say when your brain function is going down over time. And that's something that'll come up in our conversation. What goes up must come down. Like dopamine, if it goes up, be careful, it's going to go down. That's when you have problems. So here we are talking about disease, and I got to cut myself short because I'm going to talk about an hour on just one thing because I just love to hear myself talking. So let me tell you. So when it comes to disease, dopamine has been studied, and let me tell you that if you balance your dopamine, not only can you feel happy and not getting into trouble, pull yourself out of trouble, dopamine can help lower your blood pressure. Dopamine can be an antidote to an hormonal imbalance, which we call chronic stress. So we will talk about the things that bring it down. We'll talk about the things that naturally bring it up. And the important thing, which I'll end on, is dopamine has a constant tonic effect. And it can go up a little to make you happy, and it can go down a little. It's not good when it goes too high, when you crave and take something because you felt so good, because what goes up will go down so low. And where the pleasure is for dopamine is also where the pain is. So when you have high amounts of dopamine, and then you get your pleasure, and when it goes down, you're in pain. So your body says, I need that, and you're going to do whatever it takes. So dopamine is really, really important on understanding that, and a lot more, which hopefully we'll get into.
You talked about something, and I know Dr. Miller can really dig into this, and I want to hear what you went through with this, Brody. But you talked about testing. Okay, so a lot of people have, like a full-time job where they have medical coverage, and maybe they feel on the front end like they're protected because they have coverage. But then you started talking about, hey, you get all these diagnostic tests run. If you go to the hospital, you feel like you had a heart attack, maybe you had acid reflux, or you had an anxiety attack because you did too many drugs or something. And you get all this testing done. They can't find anything. They're not sure what's wrong. But you incur debt because you have co-pays. You have times when the insurance denies coverage or says, no, we're only going to pay 50% of that. It's just here and there. They can do whatever they want. And, Dr. Miller, all of that time, those years you went through with the damage and the suffering, they say one of the most popular cause of bankruptcy is medical debt, not credit cards, not just losing your job, but medical debt. Did you incur that? Even did you have health coverage when you got the brain damage, when you were put on all these drugs? Did you incur a bunch of expenses?
Well, thank goodness I did have medical insurance. I remember it like yesterday. I was on a helicopter ride from Tucson, Arizona to Phoenix, to Phoenix, and it was a 30-minute helicopter ride. We ended up getting the bill. It was covered by insurance, but at that time, before inflation, it was $80,000 for a 30-minute helicopter ride.
Wow.
So I started to scratch my head that something just doesn't seem right here. And once again, before inflation, it would probably be the equivalent to $140,000 these days. I had a seizure after my brain surgery, and it was really scary for everybody. So they put me on a helicopter, took me out to Phoenix. Luckily, it was nothing serious, but what you alluded to is the expense is outrageous, and so we have to protect ourselves in every way that we can. It's so important to empower ourselves by learning about health, by taking proactive steps to avoid things like that. We have to be our own insurance, in my opinion.
Yeah, and if you go to someone like Dr. Habib and you get checked out, let's say there you feel normal, like you said earlier, and you get checked out and you do preventative care, you do, proactive health care, then you got to look at it as not just protecting your health, but protecting your finances, right? I mean, come on, all of these addictions, all of this damage, the long term, even if you have coverage, you're going to be losing work time. You're going to be losing family time, leisure time. When you're sick and miserable, the world doesn't spin. It's just stands still for you. And all you want is to stop suffering.
Well, let me tell you another angle. After the national defense, the second most expense in GDP is healthcare dollars. So not only is it your number one for bankruptcy, but it's second most expensive business. And they're not doing a good job, because I don't know the last time they cured ALS or Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. I don't know the last time they cured heart disease. I don't know the last time. In fact, I have friends who are cardiologists. I speak a little fast, so maybe I'll say it slower. I have friends who are cardiologists who believe or don't believe you can fix hypertension. How is that possible when I do this 80% of the time? They don't believe you can cure diabetes. How is that I can do that 70% of the times? They don't even look for inflammation, insulin resistance, which is leading to heart disease and dementia and all the chronic diseases like PCOS and hormone disruption. And they don't even measure it. So now it leads to, what are you testing? So when this is a word of advice to all the viewers out there, when some doctor says that, well, first of all, you went to the doctor because maybe you had a problem or you had a concern, and they do the testing and they say the testing is fine. It's not uncommon for them to look at you and say, testing is fine, see you later. They don't actually say see you later, but they may as well. Alligator. Anyway.
Book the follow-up.
There you go. That's right. That's right. You can't forget that. So listen, so they go in, they have concerns, they have symptoms, and the doctor has done his evaluation and the testing, they're normal. Remember what I said, absence of disease doesn't make it normal. But more importantly, did you do the right tests? If you don't do the right test, you don't find the root of the problem. So when you have hypertension, the root of the problem is inflammation. When you find inflammation, you can bring it down with fish oil and vitamin C. If you want to be really smart, then you should ask yourself, where does inflammation come from? Now, I could give you 3 causes of high blood pressure: inflammation, insulin resistance, and oxidation. Keep it simple: inflammation, insulin resistance. And you may say, well, Dr. Habib, we're not talking about hypertension. Oh, but we are talking about inflammation oxidation, because you talk about the brain, you're talking about inflammation oxidation. So let me just tell you, it starts from the body. So of course, if you had a head injury, it's different. If you have psychological stress, it's different. But let me tell you that a lot of people are injuring their bodies and it's going to the brain, and their doctor has no clue what's going on. That brain fog, my focus isn't there, my recall, so many, attention problems. They don't realize that inflammation crosses the blood-brain barrier. An insulin receptor is the gateway to saying, will you get fuel in that cell? Because if you have insulin resistance, you're not getting fuel to your brain cells, it's not going to work. You're not getting fuel to your blood vessel cells, it's not going to work. You're not getting fuel to your liver cells, you get fatty liver. So where am I missing the point? Do the right test, then you got to know what it means. So now I said, let's stick to inflammation. It's the leading cause for almost all chronic disease and the number one reason for aging. That's why we call it inflammaging. Inflammation causes aging. Take that to the bank. It damages cell membranes. It damages everything. That's why it's so bad. And if we can identify it and we nip it in the bud, half of our conversation is over. I mean, in a good way. You've solved half of your problems. And then by the time you dealt with insulin resistance, you've dealt with 80%. And let me finish on this. I know you're getting fed up of me talking here. And let me finish on this. So once you bring it down, which is you could do it without knowing what the cause is. Once you know the cause, and I have to give you a little insight, most of it comes from an imbalance in the gut, dysbiosis. How many people have gut problems, going to the gut doctor, and they have no idea it's affecting their brain? How many people go to the gut doctor and they have hypertension? How many people go to the gut doctor and they have other, whether it's neurological, almost everything. So when we talk about dopamine and the chemicals in the brain, you better not forget the body, because the liver's making that dopamine, the liver's making that serotonin, the liver's making that epinephrine. It's not only in the brain. That's why we call it the brain gut axis and the gut brain axis. It's a two-way highway. Next person.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, in 2014, I got double published. I wrote a book called Don't Eat Cancer. And at the same time, I was writing a book about how to stop smoking naturally. And what I was doing, and I didn't really realize it at the time so much. I wasn't trying to nail it down and look at it objectively, but I was eliminating toxins from my own intake while I was writing about these things. So what I was doing was I was stopping all the bad guys at the gate. And I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a doctor, but I was learning what you guys know. I was learning what nutritionists know by default, because I was saying, hey, look, I'm going to stop, smoking weed. I'm going to stop drinking. I used to drink a beer every day when I got home from work. It was just a thing, even just one beer. And then, too much creamer in my coffee, sugary foods, seed oils. I was learning all of these toxins that were like addictions, because seed oils are an addiction. You get into junk food, you can't stop. You open the bag of chips, the Doritos or the salty chips, and you go through the whole dang thing, and you look at it and you go, where did it go? I don't even remember eating it. And so those addictions fuel that rotten gut. And that's what you're talking about, Dr. Mahsin. I mean, the rotten gut, that's where most of your dopamine is created. And then it's got to be processed by your cleansing organs. So if your liver and your kidneys and your pancreas are taxed and overworked because you got pesticides, ammonia, bleach, GMOs, seed oils, petrochemicals, all this junk, especially in American food, then your cleansing organs, which are supposed to be processing the dopamine, they can't do their job right. And then it's sent on the vagus nerve. And every time I mention the vagus nerve, doctors and nutritionists go, yes, my turn to talk. So, because it means so much in it. And then the dopamine cruises up. It's like tree branches, goes to your brain, and then it's stored up there. And when I started learning about dopamine, more about it, Dr. Habib said, have you ever heard of dopamine? Have you ever heard of leaky brain syndrome? And I said, what? Because your brain goes to leaky gut syndrome. You're like, everybody's heard of that. He's like, no, leaky brain. I was like, no, I had to Google it. And then my editor, he Googled it too. He was like, wait a second, let me find out if this is real. It's real. Now they'll say it's kind of rare, but it's not. And so the combination of not producing enough, not processing it properly, not storing it properly. And then there's another disease where when it's transported from your brain to other parts of your brain and throughout your body, dopamine deficiency transporter syndrome, something like that, DDTS, you lose some of it on the neuronal pathways because of these chemicals we eat and all of that. So that is when I started carving my daily intake, even more so. And I'm telling you, the past 2 years, I've been on this crazy kick. My relatives and friends can tell you, I deny almost all the sugars and sweets and alcohol. I barely drink, barely eat sweets. I'm operating on like what I call a high frequency. It's really positive, energetic. The cosmic vibrations, I feel them, man. I'm more appreciative all day. I don't get tired, depressed, stressed, anxious. If something happens to me, I can nip it in the bud. I mean, in seconds or a minute or two. And then I'm thankful again. I'm like, oh, right back to appreciation. And that to me, we all have, religions and philosophies and things that are holy to us. But to me, my connection with God is appreciation. And I can be so appreciative all day long and reminded to be, because I'm not suffering from brain fog and gut rot and low dopamine, and that I know you guys are like that, because when I call you guys or you call me out of the blue just to collaborate or to re-emphasize something or with a new idea, we're always on it. We're not, hey man, I'm kind of chilling out right now, let me hit you back in a little. We just get to it. It's great. You guys feel the same way, right?
Yeah. And that's the freedom that you experience when you're no longer dependent on physical chemicals. You're no longer dealing with mental or emotional trauma. You're no longer disconnecting yourself from a spiritual aspect. When you put bad substances into your body, you're losing that connection with God in the universe. You're dampening that. And when you break free from that, it's an unexplainable feeling to overcome your cravings, to overcome your impulses, and to become the best version of yourself. Is what all of this is all about. Is just do the very best that you can every single day. Aspire to make progress. Don't worry about perfection. Perfectionism is the number one trigger for addiction, because people that are high addictive, we're all addicted to something, but people that are have that propensity to addiction, we are our own worst critic. So I don't believe that God or the universe made us to be critical, overly critical for ourselves. It's important to reinforce positive behaviors and positive thought patterns, and to give ourselves, treat our body and our brain like the temple that it is. You don't want to give it toxins or cigarettes or nicotine or even porn addiction. This is disconnecting you from the better version of you, for you in society. You're not the only one who suffers. If you're dealing with addiction, your family suffers, your friends will suffer. You're not the only one suffering. So take that into consideration as well.
If I can just,
Dr. Habib, I was at your office a couple of months ago. We were filming a video for a health course, and you had a couple people there, some patients. And one of them had been through the ringer because of cancer. He had been through chemo and surgery, and you had him on, I think, a high dose C drip or in the oxygen chamber or something. And that guy, tall, handsome dude, he was so positive and happy. You would not know he went through what he went through. And I bet you don't, with all that you do, and you got to focus on, you don't get to see those reactions so often, and the effect that you're having on people when they leave and they're able to reverse or prevent disease and disorder because of what you do, Dr. Habib. I bet you that's all. If you could just have that looking glass and see how happy these people are functioning throughout the day. That guy just came in, man. If I'd have been through what he went through, I don't know, I'd be probably just sitting there with a worried look on my face all day. He wasn't.
it's amazing you said that. And the truth is that when you do things the right way, even in a very critical situation, I'll give you a story real quick in a minute, that not only do you help them out of their crisis, but you make their functional level so much higher. That means brain function too, because the things that we use to get people out of cancer, like using oxygen through hyperbaric oxygen chamber, will go through every single tissue in the body down to the interstitial space 10 times more than breathing air. No wonder his brain feels better, because it's been oxygenated. Blood going is the minimum standard, but that doesn't mean it's oxygenated. So what I want to tell you about that kind of guy, and we don't have his name, so it's fine. He was going to die of something called mantle cell leukemia. Leukemia is bad enough, especially when you're an adult. Mantle cell is even more rare. It's what we describe as undifferentiated. That means it's chaotic. There's no organization.
And the guy was only, like 40 years old or something?
He was like 40, early 40s. And so
Mm.
when you have leukemia, the lymph nodes just grow and grow all over the body. His lymph nodes in his throat was so big he couldn't breathe. And so I told him, listen, as much as I'm a holistic doctor, but I'm an MD. This is what I'm trained in, and I'm telling you, you need to bring that lymph node down, and the only way is to bring that leukemia down using chemotherapy. He was afraid that he's going to be stuck on chemo forever. I said, listen, bro, get started, bring it down. I'll work with you. We can change,
Mm.
stop it anytime. We can reduce it anytime. Don't worry about that. First, you got to breathe,
Mhm.
right? A lot of holistic
Mm.
doctors forget their medical training and almost don't know when a pulmonary emboli comes through the door. They almost don't know when a heart attack comes through the door, because not all
Mm.
heart attacks come with crushing chest pain. Sometimes they just can't breathe sitting on the chair, or laying down on the chair, they sit up. I had somebody that came in on I digress. They couldn't sleep laying flat for 30 days. I did an EKG, found this abnormal. I said, "Oh, you're not lying down because you're filling up with fluid from a heart attack done 30 days ago." Sorry, I get so excited I'm moving my phone all over the place here. So let me stay focused, right? So now let's talk about the mantle cell leukemia really, really quick. So we brought that cancer down with chemo. Then we put him in ketosis so that the fuel can get into all the cells in the body, including the brain. The brain loves ketones. The brain loves lactate. It does not like insulin, sugar, unless you're really metabolically active. As you get older, your metabolism in every organ goes down a little bit, and the brain is not spared, especially in the state of something called insulin resistance, where fuel can't get in, so metabolism is lower. See, so connected. So he's got we put him on ketosis to starve the cancer to a degree, but more importantly to nourish, from a fuel point of view, every single cell in the body, because you have to nourish the mitochondria, right? The mitochondria is going to be nourished. And then we put oxygen, push it in with pressure, hyperbaric oxygen chamber, 2 out of 3. The third one is to shut off metabolic pathways in cancer. Now, this is the new type of cancer. I know you didn't want to talk about cancer, but I think a lot of people will be interested, not maybe for themselves, but somebody they know. That's the problem. After heart attack, the number 2 cause of death is between stroke and cancer. Cancer will probably outstrip stroke, and maybe, well, it can't outstrip a heart attack, because you'll still die of heart attack. Because so whether you got any diseases, you will die of a heart attack, because you get clotty, the risks of
Mm.
inflammation. Everybody
Mhm.
ends with heart attack. That's why getting those advanced tests for cardiac is not for cardiac. It's to show you risk for every disease, because all disease end with
Oh.
a heart
Mhm.
attack. You can take that to the bank.
Mhm.
But the cardiologists don't
Yeah.
have all the answers, because they don't realize that inflammation is coming from the gut. The neurologist doesn't
Wow.
know that. The rheumatologist doesn't know that. So they don't even tell you to change your diet. They don't even bring up the liver. So one of the things, I'm changing subjects. Oh man, there's so much to talk about. Let's stay on the cancer, then we'll talk about the liver, how the enzyme in the liver will determine dopamine. So let's talk about the cancer one last bit, which is to say that the first part was cutting off the fuel that cancers want. They break down an
Mhm.
amino acid called glutamine, and they hijack the glutamine. So number one, when people have cancer, stop supplementing with glutamine. Cancer will probably still get it, but there are ways to shut off glutamine. We call it
Mhm.
glutaminolysis. Break down glutamine to get fuel. That's how we get the fuel too, but cancer hijacks that. So if it hijacks it, that means it's vulnerable. So you want to shut that off. And guess what? Ivermectin, not because of anti-parasite, and I've always suspected this, and now in the last 1 year, studies have revealed the pathway. Ivermectin, which is the anti-parasite, and probably a few other anti-parasite medication, what they do is they block that amino acid breakdown pathway, that
Oh,
glutamine
wow.
breakdown
Okay.
called glutaminolysis. If you shut it down or help shut it down, it will hurt the cancer more than you. And the trick is, the more powerful something is, cycle in, cycle off.
Well, you talk about cutting off the fuel. I mean, that's like in the art of war. The best way to beat the enemy is to cut off their fuel supply.
Yeah,
So
and
that's what we are doing here today, really, is talking about what is the fuel of the bad health. Because when you cut that off And Dr. Miller and I designed our health course is all about swaps. So a lot of people are like, oh my God, you're going to say buy organic food, I got to spend more money. Or you're going to say buy a bunch of supplements, I got to spend a bunch of money. No, actually, you don't have to spend another dime. In fact, we can save you thousands of dollars, literally save you thousands of dollars by just getting you off of junk food, by just getting you off of tobacco or getting you off of alcohol. And I'm not talking about some things you do a little bit of it and you're dragged back in and it's a horrible habit. But a lot of stuff you can do in moderation. There's people that drink a glass of wine every night with dinner and live to be 100 and they're still, clear-minded, whatever. But I'm just talking about these addictions, these bad habits that drag you in. They take all your money. So if you swap these bad habits, and some of them are behaviors, not always substances. Some of them are behaviors like gambling, pornography, gaming, social media. Some of these habits, they're still toxic because they're wrecking your family life, your social life. They're taking your time. They're wrecking your eyes. They're wrecking your brain with misinformation and just dumb stuff. And so you're toxifying your mind and your body. And then, you were going to mention, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you were going to talk about liver health. That's like the catapult for all these diseases and disorders, because that's doing all the filtering of all these toxins, right?
Let me just bring Dr. Brody in, because when we talk about low metabolism in the brain, head injury is one of those examples, and so too anxiety, depression. But Dr. Brody, just give us a little insight about metabolism in the brain, because when the fuel is down, addiction will probably go up.
Yeah, that's such a valid point that you look at study after study after study. When somebody experiences a head injury, whether it's a concussion, a hit to the head, a brain injury from toxins, a brain injury even from COVID-19 or virus, there's a high correlation and high prevalence between addiction and impulse control and brain damage. So the fact is when addiction is not a character issue. It's a brain health issue. It's a neurochemical issue. It's a whole nervous system, whole body issue. I used to think I was a bad person. I said, I'm addicted. That means I'm a bad person. I can't control myself. But when I realized that I had a brain injury that damaged my frontal lobe, it impacts my brain health metabolism. The mitochondria are not connecting and firing the way they need to. The axons, which is called the white matter between our brain cells, was disconnected, sheared, and stretched. And that was causing my issues. And when that was the root cause, as we talk about, when you get to the root cause of your issues, it no longer becomes I'm a bad person. I am struggling. Addiction is a dis-ease, and I can get back to a state of ease, a state of peace, a state of well-being through daily habits, through reading, through exercise, being proactive, taking supplements, eliminating toxins, celebrating the mind, body, spirit equation. And I can get back not only to where I am, but sharper than ever before. And this is what's amazing when you start to take the best tiny steps in the right directions.
You always say that. I love that, because you say the tiny steps, and that's what it is. Because when you look at your own faults or whatever, the way people perceive them, they're really bad habits. Like you said, it's not a character issue. It's bad habits. And you replace and replenish. That's what I've said for several years in a lot of my writing. Replace and replenish. So take any bad habit, just pick one. Okay. If it's sugar, you say, all right, I'm going to look at added sugars. Look at added sugars in food and just don't buy anything that says added sugar. Okay. Because there's sugar in fruit, but it's attached to the fiber. There's artificial sweeteners. Those are horrible. But added sugar, it's everywhere. It's in so much food. But if you just eat whole, unprocessed food, shop on the outskirts of the store, get the produce, get the fresh fruit and vegetables, the organic stuff, get the wild caught game, seafood. Don't go down those, I call them the corporate aisles, because everything's bagged, canned, boxed, and processed and preserved with stuff that kills your gut and your liver and your brain. It destroys it. And there's the disconnect. That's the spiritual disconnect. That's the disease, is that your body's toxified. And what I think most people misunderstand about addiction is they think that it's just sobriety and addiction. But the huge gray area that overlaps like a Venn diagram, it's a huge section that overlaps, is toxic food. It's so underrated. Conventional food is so polluted with chemicals that when you eat crappy food regularly, you're so toxic. You're enabling the addiction to trigger you because you're negative. You have a low self-esteem. Why don't you feel like you're doing good at your job? Why don't you feel like your project is going to gain ground and come to fruition? Why don't you feel like your relationship's good when it really is, but you don't feel like it is, and you're kind of being nasty and crabby? You got a toxic body inside, and it's what you're putting in it. You have a 100% control over what you put in your body, on your body. Breathe in, all these things. We got 99% control. I mean, if you're not stuck in the Lincoln Tunnel in traffic. So yeah, that's what I want to talk about next, is the cost of addictions. What the cost to your wallet, to your insides, to your brain, and then to your spiritual connection.
Well, as we're getting close to the end, we should leave the viewers with some actionable solutions, and you started that already. I just want to say to our audience, because they will understand what I'm about to say, which is that everybody has rights. Your friends have rights, your family has rights, your mother, your father, your children have rights over you. Your body has a right over you. It's part of our religion. Not just the bodybuilders, their body's not their temple, but we have. And therefore, everything that Sean brought up, to let me sort of parallel that with lifestyle. So when you're eating for yourself, that for enjoyment, with the processed stuff, the seed oils and the refined stuff, you get a dopamine high, but you're not feeding the microbiome. The microbiome are bacteria that feed off things that we can't feed off. A diverse array of fibers in your fruits and vegetables. You can pick whichever you want. So reduce the processed stuff out of boxes and containers and barcodes, and just start to focus on, like you said, Sean, add one. Take away one, add one. Think about how you're feeding the microbiome. So when you can't break down fiber, your bacteria can. So when you have diverse fruits and vegetables with different types of fibers, they nurture different types of microbes. We call them diverse. That's associated with lower inflammation.
Well, I got a metaphor for that anybody can identify with. Go to the beach. Okay, I'm from Virginia Beach. I grew up at the Atlantic Ocean. Go to the beach, say New Jersey or Virginia Beach, and look at the water. Okay, it's dark. It's polluted. Virginia Beach is a big Navy area. Usually there's just fuel. You can see like the oil in there, and there'll just be stuff floating. It could be trash. It could be, you don't even know what. Boats are dumping stuff, hospital waste. Talk about New Jersey and New York. They're dumping hospital waste. You see the water. You can't see a foot deep in the water. Now then, the opposite. Go to the Caribbean. Go to the Caribbean. You could be neck deep in water. You can count your toes. The fish are swimming around. It's beautiful, tropical fish, because of the coral reef. The coral reef cleans everything, and you don't have all the industry. You don't have the pollution. You don't have the hospitals and the factories dumping waste, and the Navy You don't have all of that. And so it's beautiful. And that's your insides. You have control over that environment, and so when you clean that up, you can clean up addiction. What most people don't realize is the addictions are jacking up your dopamine. But people don't know how to kick the addiction because they don't know anything else that will boost their dopamine anywhere close to how that addiction is boosting it. But the sad part is over time, and everyone knows this, is you become numb to that fix, and you need more often, more intense version, higher potency of whatever it is, and you become numb to it. So over time, there's a point of diminishing returns anyway on the dopamine, and your body's going to downregulate the dopamine anyway, and you're going to get less reward. But people don't know about the power of superfoods, which are just nutrient-dense foods, and the power of certain supplements. And I talk about Mucuna pruriens all the time. We put it in our gum. Mucuna pruriens is a tropical bean. It's just a legume, but you grind it up and they use the beans and the roots. It's Ayurvedic medicine. It's non-addictive. It boosts your dopamine like never before. So people that try like our gum, or I used to have some drinks that I invented that had it in it. They go, wow, I didn't have cravings for nicotine or sugar for like 3 hours after that, because they didn't know about it. Their body's never had it before. And there's plenty of superfoods out there that can boost your dopamine and make you feel awesome. And they rival these addictions.
And Sean, that's why we created Addiction Rescue, was to give people practical steps, practical tools, all in one place where they can come learn about the superfoods. They can learn strategies and tactics on how to stop cravings, how to start to feel better in a very short time frame. And so that's why we created Addiction Rescue. It's www.addictionrescueteam.com. And really, we just, from the bottom of our heart, want people to feel the freedom that you feel when you're no longer struggling with cravings, struggling with weight gain, or any addiction, alcohol, drugs, even sex. When you're free from that, it's not perfection, but you take these little steps that Sean and we put our heart and soul into this course to make it actionable, make it quick. So go give that a check that out. And if a friend or family member is going through this, when you reset your dopamine system, miracles can happen, as we all attest to.
Yeah, and I just wanted to touch on, if you give me a minute here, to talk about the cost of addictions, because when we look at, I helped smokers quit smoking for years and years. And one of the hardest things for smokers to do is to spend money on something that they don't know about and haven't tried before, because there was the patch and the gum, the nicotine gum, and people become addicted to those. They just switch the addiction. And I met a lady who was on the gum for 9 years. If you run up that tab, she spent thousands and thousands of dollars, just like she did on cigarettes. She was still addicted to nicotine, which constricts your blood vessels and limits the oxygen and nutrient supply to your brain and wrecks everything else eventually. But I did some cost analysis, and our program, we marketed our program under $300, and with the discount code Islam, you're down around $250 once. It's not some membership. It's not something, we're trying to sell a bunch of stuff, a bunch of products. It's just one course, and you get ebooks. You get free ebooks. Dr. Miller's best-selling book, Brain Rescue. My new book that Dr. Habib helped author is called The Dopamine Revolution. And then I wrote about a 25,000-word ebook to go with the course that really delves into it. And you could probably listen to that, get it on audio. If you look at cigarettes alone, a cost of cigarettes, a pack of cigarettes right now is $8. And then you need teeth whiteners and cough medications and headache meds and all that other junk. 2 years time, you've spent $7,500, $7,500. If you engage in a hookah, the cost of shisha tobacco is about $4 for 50 grams. Or if you buy one of those big tubs, it's about $70 for a kilogram. The pipe costs about $100. The accessories, the hose and the bowl are about $30. Plus you need teeth whitening products because of the tar. You're spending over $9,000 in 2 years, $9,000. I'm not fluffing numbers. I looked all this up. If you're vaping, the vape gadget, the e-liquid, you got to replace the gadget because the battery goes bad and the coils. $8,000 in 2 years. $8,000 in 2 years. Alcohol, the 6-packs are up to $12 a 6-pack now. A bottle of wine's $13 to $15. A bottle of spirits is $20. If you go out and buy a couple drinks at a restaurant or bar, $30, $35. If you bring a date or a sig other, $50, $80. If you buy food with that, forget about it. Over 2 years, $6,000 for the typical alcohol habit. Junk food. This is a big one, folks. Junk food. A typical grocery run right now with crazy inflation prices for one person in 1 week is about $150 to $200. Half of it you're spending on junk food. People are buying processed food. You can get in line and look at what they put on the conveyor belt. It's a bunch of junk. $75 a week on junk food. That's half your groceries. $7,500 in 2 years. If you get the addiction rescue course for $250 in 3 weeks, you just watch the videos for 15 minutes a day in 3 weeks, and you end just one of those addictions, you're saving $7,500 in 2 years. If you have 2 or 3 of the addictions I just named, and I didn't even talk about hard drugs, you're saving $15,000 in 2 years. And a lot of people have 2 of those addictions. So we're not trying to take your money. We're trying to save you a fortune. And like Dr. Miller said, and Dr. Habib's, where our heart and our minds are in this, and we're in it for the long haul, and we protect our reputation, and we want everybody to be happy. And Dr. Miller put a 30-day money-back guarantee on our course. So if for some reason you don't kick these cravings you have for these addictions, just ask for your money back. It takes a lot for people to do that these days. You know, there's not that many. There's all these scams out there and these things that keep charging you fees and they keep pounding you, and then it's a hell in a bucket to get your money back. So we didn't do that. We're being honorable. And Dr. Habib, thank you so much, because Dr. Habib's been like an underwriter for me for the past 2 years, and we are moving forward. Dr. Habib, you're talking about having a kit that you can mail out and people can get it at their home and do like a urine sample or a blood sample or saliva samples even, right? And then they mail it to the lab. They share the results with you. And then what, you get on a Zoom with people and you can do like a pre-diagnosis from read them the results, and then maybe do a follow-up down the line. We can't wait. We're going to launch that with you. I can't wait for that, right?
Yeah, instead of you going to the doctor will come to you. So at the comfort of your home, you can do finger prick testing and send that in, and then you can do urine tests in the morning. First thing when you wake up, that's when you release most of your toxins. We can pick up mold toxins, the things that interfere with the liver, and your diet is the biggest one. So we can send you kits where finger prick. We can look at food allergies, leaky gut, a toxic bacterial buildup, fungal overload in the gut. A lot of stuff you can do remotely, and then do the consultation, over the phone.
And you're going to be able to help a lot more people like that than just, with having like walk-ins at your office and stuff. And then we're going to be able to help a bunch more people, because, even if you didn't buy our course, or if you did buy the course, or you just want to do what Dr. Habib's offering first and just see where you're at with everything. Because you might want to just start reversing disease and disorder now. If you've been punishing yourself with junk food and hookah and alcohol or whatever, I mean, you say, okay, hold on. Let's figure out where I'm at, because we want to meet you where you're at. Everybody's different. Everybody's got a different physiology. Everybody's got different habits. We want to meet you where you're at. And that was the fun of putting the videos together for the course. I had such a good time with Dr. Miller. We had a blast, man. We talked, we'd get on there before and after. You know, we spend 2 hours together, but the videos are, you know, condensed and very digestible. But that's where the healthcare model is really moving forward. And Dr. Habib, I know you can speak to that. It's kind of the DIY model, but it's not, because you're getting the coaching. You can get the testing without going into the hospital for 5 hours and worrying about a bill for 20 grand. You're talking about a few $100s, right?
Actually, more important than that, it fills in the missing gaps in the conventional medical diagnosis and treatment. And so what one promises you guaranteed medicine for the rest of your life because they don't feel they can cure anything. The other one actually gets to the root of the problem where you feel better and you don't have to be on medicine, or you get off the medication.
Man, I tell you what, when I wake up in the morning every day, I had COVID about 5 years ago, and it was a nightmare, and it threw off my equilibrium, and I was dizzy all day. I was nauseous, and I was taking Dramamine because I get seasick when I get like the inner ear and the inflammation. I get my equilibrium's thrown off. I was nauseous all day, so I was taking Dramamine like it was a medication every 3 hours. I'm telling you. And then afterwards, I don't know if I had long COVID or it was just chronic inflammation or what, but I was off, man. It was difficult. And I remember it was very hard for me to pray and to really be in tune in that high frequency that I talk about now. It was very difficult, and stuff was stressing me out. I don't usually get stressed. Stuff was stressing me out. And I was like, I'm going to end this. And I am very, very grateful. I say my prayers when I get up. I say them throughout the day, but when I get up in the morning, I spend about the first 5 minutes. And one of the things I think is, man, I'm not dizzy and nauseous. You know, I'm not at aches and pains and miserable. And this is where religion, I think, really comes into full swing, because you're not distracted. Everything's a distraction. You know, the addictions are a distraction. Feeling bad in general is a huge distraction. If you know, I watched that show Alone. It's got all the survivors on there. And I'll tell you the number one thing that sends them home. And it ain't that they can't hunt. And it's not that they can't build a shelter or survive the cold or even the loneliness. Guess what sends them home? When they get a bacterial infection and start throwing up. When they're nauseous, they're done. You become like a baby. And they're like, I don't know what's going to, they're probably going to be over it in 2 days, but you're so miserable. And I think that is what is the biggest distraction when we're addicted to stuff. That misery, the hangover, it's the extended hangover. It's the hourly hangover when the nicotine wears off or the alcohol wears off. You know, it's just this extended hangover. And I think that's where holistic living is key. It's the best because this model is sustainable. That's the key word. It's sustainable. It's not something you do. It's not some crazy diet you do for 3 months and then you feel great and then you can do whatever for 2 weeks. No, it's something that's sustainable.
Well, I can leave people with one simple advice, which is, number one, try to be regular when you go to sleep, because your sleep is the most important restorative time. It'll restore your hormones. It'll protect your gut lining. It will protect you from getting inflammation, because the brain can also turn on inflammation. And one of the things I learned, and because I'm getting older and hopefully wiser, is that I have to stop eating early enough. Just because I can burn it doesn't mean I'm going to get away with it. So you don't always have to put bad stuff in, because your metabolites, the things that break down from your food, particularly, I don't even need a lot of carbs, but those breakdown products are aldehydes. So you don't have to sniff aldehydes in your scented perfume or makeup. You don't have to have chemicals of aldehydes. Aldehydes are toxic material. So alcohol is an aldehyde, but most of our audience are maybe not drinking alcohol, but you are eating. And you may be eating refined carbs, and you may be eating a lot of carbs before you go to bed. They get broken down to methyl glyoxal. Methyl glyoxal is an aldehyde. Aldehyde is another term for just toxic fat. Fat that's toxic causes oxidation. So that's what happens when, if I eat late at night, then my brain temperature can't come down because my body is in thermogenesis. I've eaten, my body is, metabolism went up. If your metabolism goes up, your brain temperature can't go down when you sleep. And we do know in studies that when you go into deep sleep, your brain temperature comes down. But that won't happen if you eat late at night. And secondly, what you eat at night. I eat pretty good stuff. And even then, when I eat late at night, those metabolites cause a kind of fog in my brain. I don't know if I'm just sensitive or I'm just not as resilient as I used to be. I think a bit of both is true. It's okay to admit that. And the answer is, if I went to bed a little bit earlier, I wouldn't have snacked. If I went to bed earlier, I'd have had more restorative sleep. So the best time to sleep is between, say, 10 and 4, 6 hours right there. Right now, you can have 7 or to 9. It's up to you. But you can't have 8 hours sleep from midnight to 8. You can't have 8 hours sleep from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. The 8 hours of sleep on average gives you the best blood pressure reading. Now, why did I bring that up? Because that's evidence-based medicine. Otherwise, we don't know what the right amount of sleep. You got to have some metric to measure, at least one of many to measure, to say what's the right amount of sleep and what's the duration. If you get to sleep at the right time, it's called the circadian rhythm. You get the same amount of sleep at the wrong time, you're breaking the circadian rhythm. So wake up at the right time. Get the UV light in the eyes. That UVB talks to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus then tells your pituitary to send out all the hormones. And this is after a good night's sleep. So get a good night's sleep, start the day, get outside, not through your windows that block UV, not the car windows, crack that window open when you're driving, because that's when the light can come in. You need to start the day right so that you can finish the day right. And when you finish the day right, don't eat late at night. Try to get the routine in your sleep. That's the most important thing I can say for this episode. And I can't wait for the next episode.
Yeah, it was a blast.
It's going to be great. Go ahead.
It was a blast. I just want to say one more thing before I leave real quickly is you can turn a setback into a major comeback from a neuropsychological standpoint. Just think in that mentality, becoming the best version of you, you can absolutely turn a setback into a comeback. Just you have to start, and you have to start now.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm a student for life. And I'm always carving and molding, and you got to figure stuff out as you go, and that's what this is about. This course we designed is just along the journey. It's just along the path. It's a cool bridge. It's a bridge out of addiction, and it's a bridge that can keep you from relapsing. And now I've been saying that repeatedly, Dr. Miller. You probably heard me say it 50 times in the past 3 months. My main goal here is that you don't relapse, because there's so many quick fixes, from diets to, these free yourself from addiction with the nicotine patch. No, I'm talking about never relapsing, not switching addictions to something else. I'm talking about never going back. Let's fuel longevity. I just had we kind of had a family reunion for my mother's birthday, and we had my aunt Natalie was there, 92 years old. She sat next to me at dinners, cracking jokes. And I said, I purposely did this. I dialed it back. I was like, man, when I was little and we used to come to your house, she had this really nice house. And I told her how nice she was, how considerate, with all the kids going wild and running around her house. She goes, that is a really nice thing for you to say, Sean. And it's just a beautiful thing. Here she is. She's 92, man. I want to be a centurion with a clear mind who's still walking a mile a day and doing a podcast talking about it. Come on, guys.
Well, all I got to say is keep your dopamine going. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, we're going to delve into that a lot more next round. And we'll be back on Islam on Demand almost weekly. We're going to have 5 or 6 more sessions, and we're going to delve a little bit more, take some deep dives. We wanted to kind of cover everything more in general this time, and you know, go for the ride with us and benefit just from this. If you don't buy anything from us, you know, we're not salesmen. If you don't buy it, great. Tune in, stay tuned, and learn a lot. And we're learning from each other right here. We're not just talking to talk. We walk the walk, and we're learning from each other. I learned stuff today from you two guys. I appreciate it. And just grateful for our time today and being healthy and happy.
Till next time.
All right, over and out. We'll see you guys soon.